ADR. Promoting dialogue.
Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink, and here are the top stories. Nigeria Labour Congress rejects telecom tariff hike, plans nationwide protest. Ghana's President Mahama says calls for constitutional reform signal progress, not failure.
The world has changed, and so too must the legal framework that governs us. The call for constitutional reform is not an admission of failure, but an acknowledgement of the progress.
CSOs in Senegal welcome the government's move to rationalize public spending of officials on foreign missions.
Rationalization does not mean impoverishment of our institutions or our international delegations.
And Niger becomes first country in Africa to eliminate river blindness. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is a more edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Let's begin this evening in Nigeria, where the main labor union, NLC, has rejected a government-approved 50% hike in telecommunications tariffs and announced plans for a nationwide protest on February 4. The telecoms regulator last week approved the increase in mobile tariffs, the first such hike in more than a decade, bowing to pressure from operators struggling with surging costs amid high inflation and currency devaluation. At a meeting of the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC late on Wednesday, union leaders called the increase insensitive, unjustifiable, and a direct assault on citizens already grappling with the worst cost of living crisis in a generation caused by reforms instituted by President Bola Tinubu. Speaking on local media, NLC spokesperson Benson Ukpa said the rally will serve as a warning on the dangers of imposing such an unfair increase on a struggling population, citing high food costs and hikes in the prices of petrol and electricity.
First and foremost, let me say we are not opposed to a hike per se, but a hike must be justifiable, must be reasonable, and must be affordable. And we have to come with consultations with critical stakeholders. It's a position, and that is not asking for too much. And in any case, who is the victim in all this? Electricity slapped us with 250%, then added more on top after that. Now we have the telecom sector coming with 50%, and all of that. For goodness sake, where does that leave the ordinary Nigerian? What is the need for the ordinary Nigerian? Can we really afford this? And is this the renewed hope that we are assured of? Well, let me tell you something here. People make so much noise about the magic of taxes or taxation. But I tell you this, while taxes could bring more revenue to government, it is one thing to apply those taxes well. But beyond that, it is tempting to start taxing. The initial times, people might pay. But if there is no productive base in the final analysis, what you will find will be a stunted nation, a dead nation, because there will be nothing left to tax. At the risk of sounding immodest, and even if it is immodesty, let it be. But for the Nigerian Labour Congress, you probably will be paying 3,000 naira per liter of petrol. Whatever any of you might think of us or about us, we have been playing our role. We are going to start with peaceful rallies.
Benson Ukpa is NLC spokesperson. Meanwhile, the World Bank has reiterated its commitment to supporting national and regional initiatives aimed at enhancing stabilization and peace in the Lake Chad region. Benjamin Brocard, Senior Social Development Specialist at the World Bank, is among the over 1,000 attendees at the ongoing 5th edition of the Lake Chad Basin Governors Forum, being hosted by Yobe State Government in Maiduguri, capital of Borno State. He spoke on the sidelines of the forum with our correspondent, Usman Umar.
What the World Bank really wants to do is to support national initiatives to bring peace, stability and development in the region of the Lake Chad Basin. So having such gathering with governors from all the region impacted by the crisis is very important for us. We have a regional project that operates in Niger, Chad, Cameroon, and a national project as well in Nigeria that try to follow and support the efforts from the entire international community to help peace and stability for the local population.
So going forward, a fund to funding instruments were launched yesterday. the SMDF, and of course the Nexus family. In what role will the World Bank be playing in this very endeavors that have just been launched?
So yes, there is the new facility that was launched yesterday. On the World Bank side, we partner directly with the government. So what we will be doing, is that we will continue to support, as we did in the first regional strategy, through our ongoing and future projects to support the strategy. So we are collaborating closely, while we're not directly involved in, but we endorse its strategy and then we support it through our ongoing programs and projects.
Okay. Is there any other thing that the World Bank is here for that you would want to share?
No, I think we are very happy to be here. There is lots of opportunity that are coming.
Benjamin Brockhart is Senior Social Development Specialist at the World Bank. Now, Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama has emphasized the need for bold reforms to refine Ghana's governance system, citing gaps and ambiguities in the current legal framework that require urgent attention. Speaking at the swearing-in ceremony of an 8-member Constitutional Review Committee, the President highlighted the evolving global landscape and its implications for governance structures. He dismissed the notion that constitutional reform implies failure, instead framing it as a sign of progress and growth. President Mahama further noted that this is not Ghana's first attempt at refining its constitution, pointing the previous reform efforts as evidence of the country's commitment to evolving its democratic systems.
For over 3 decades, the 1992 Constitution has been the foundation of our democracy. It has guided us through periods of growth and challenge, securing our rights and freedoms while ensuring peaceful transitions of power. It has given us stability, resilience, and hope. Those who framed this document can look back with pride, knowing that their vision has not only endured, but has become the backbone of our nation's progress. And I say kudos to all the ordinary men and women who gathered at that time to produce this document. Yet, as with all living things, our Constitution must evolve. Former Chief Justice Soa, and I'm taking from the same quote as the AG, in the landmark to 4 vs. Attorney General case, describe our Constitution as a living organism, a sentiment that reminds us that the strength of any democracy lies in its ability to adapt. Over the years, we've seen gaps, ambiguities, and challenges that demand attention. The world has changed, and so too must the legal framework that governs us. The call for constitutional reform is not an admission of failure, but an acknowledgement of the progress, a recognition that our democracy must be dynamic, responsive, and ever attuned to the needs of our people. This is not the first time we have sought to refine our Constitution. On this day, we honor the foresight of His Excellency John Evans Atta Mills, who in 2010 established the Constitutional Review Commission. The task before you is critical. You are not just reviewing reports and proposing amendments. You are helping to shape the future of our dear nation, Ghana.
Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama is speaking there. Moscow has reaffirmed its desire to strengthen bilateral cooperation with Burkina Faso. Ambassador of the Russian Federation to Burkina Faso, Igor Martinov, stated this during a meeting with the Prime Minister of Burkina Faso, Ritemba Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo. Christopher Ticho has more details in this report.
During the meeting, the Burkinabe head of government and the Russian diplomat accredited in Ouagadougou exchanged views on strengthening bilateral cooperation between Burkina Faso and Russia. Ambassador Igor Martinov described the meeting as a courtesy call on the new prime minister, adding that it was a continuation of the bilateral dialogue. Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo, for his part, reassured the diplomat of Ouagadougou's commitment to intensify fruitful collaboration with Moscow. According to the Prime Minister, Burkina Faso wants the cooperation to be strong and diversified, noting that the gold-rich country is sensitive to the solidarity of the Russian people and are also in solidarity with Russia at the geostrategic level. The two men also discussed the upcoming signing of several partnership agreements in order to pave the way for an acceleration of the dynamic of the cooperation between the two countries. The Russian diplomat, in response, noted that all commitments are aimed at bringing the two countries closer, promoting mutually beneficial cooperation, fighting terrorism, strengthening the country's security, and the new architecture of the Sahel countries. Recourses Captain Ibrahim Traoré came to power, Burkina Faso and Russia have come closer together and are carrying out several large-scale projects in the fields of energy, mining, technology, culture, and other areas.
Christopher Ticho filed that report. In Guinea, the transitional government spokesperson Usman Gaol Jallow has revealed that not all elections may be held this year, as promised by the transitional president in a speech of December 31, 2024. Speaking at the press conference on Wednesday, Jallow highlighted the legal proceedings brought against senior government and army officials for alleged corruption and embezzlement of public funds, as well as the case of civil society actors and missing journalists as among factors delaying the process. Here is Usman Gaol Jallow, Guinean transitional government spokesperson.
Regarding the electoral calendar, in the best case scenario, we can hold elections in May. It will be difficult to insist on presidential elections immediately, as it is not possible to organize elections in July or August. Therefore, we should expect 2 major elections this year, with the others following next year. As you mentioned suspicions, the head of state has proven that he protects no one. This is a commitment he has made. He stated in front of the villains that it would not affect our integrity, and she does not waver because all the people currently suspected who are in the central house are already in no way trusted, and that he appointed. So when we see this in our country, we should rejoice because we are not used to it. In Guinea, the culture is that we denounce each other and when we are no longer in office. But with the president, I humorously say the situation is changing.
Usman Gaol Jallow is Guinean transitional government spokesperson. Back in Senegal, authorities have deepened efforts to rationalize public spending with new decisions made by Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko aimed at regulating the travel of state agents abroad. From now on, mission expenses will be better controlled. This new development has been welcomed by various civil society organizations. More details in this report with Abdullah Hassan.
Henceforth, all missions of state agents will be authorized by Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko. This is indicated by a circular from the Prime Minister's office dated January 22. For any travel abroad, government members, magistrates, military personnel, civil servants, and other state officials must present detailed justifications for the necessity of the mission. Regarding the presidency's staff, this authorization will be issued by the Minister Secretary General of the presidency. This measure has been well received by some Senegalese civil society organizations. Amadou Samb is the country head of budget.
We warmly welcome all these decisions that aim for greater transparency, especially in access to information, as even the figures have been communicated. This aligns with the rationalization of expenses, a battle we have fought for years.
However, the civil society actor wishes for the measure to be framed to avoid tarnishing the image of the state of Senegal abroad.
Rationalization does not mean impoverishment of our institutions or our international delegations. When delegations travel internationally, the country has a responsibility to ensure that the delegation is sufficiently equipped in terms of per diem, security, and all related matters.
According to the circular from Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, agents will receive 80% of their allowance before their mission departure, with the remaining balance paid upon their return. Another measure sets the maximum duration of a mission abroad at 21 days.
Abdullah Hassan filed that report. You're still listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Nigeria Labour Congress rejects telecom tariff hike plans, nationwide protest. Ghana's President Mahama says call for constitutional reforms signal progress, not failure. CSOs in Senegal welcome the government's move to rationalize public spending of officials on foreign missions. And still ahead in the news, Niger becomes first country in Africa to eliminate river blindness. We do have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget, we are streaming live on wadr.org, YouTube, and Facebook. Niger is the first country in Africa and the fifth country in the world to be recognized by the World Health Organization (WHO) as having interrupted transmission of the parasite that causes occultitis. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, in a statement on Thursday, congratulated Niger for its commitment to freeing its population from this blinding, stigmatizing disease that causes so much human suffering. Augustine Koli completes the story.
The disease, which is transmitted by the bite of an infected black fly, is mainly found near waterways. Between 1976 and 1989, the WHO recalls having launched a program in West Africa, allowing countries such as Niger to spray insecticides and reduce the transmission of the disease. Then, between 2008 and 2019, the mass administration of drugs based on ivermectin and albendazole made it impossible to interrupt the transmission of the parasite. WHO Regional Director for Africa, Mashishido Moeti, said, onchocerciasis has also hampered the economic development of affected communities by pushing people away from rivers, which are often essential to their livelihoods, adding that the partnership between the Nigerian government, WHO, and non-governmental organizations has been instrumental in Niger's success. Onchocerciasis is the second leading infectious cause of blindness in the world after trachoma. It mainly affects rural populations in sub-Saharan Africa, Yemen, and some areas in Latin America. In 2013, Niger eliminated the first neglected tropical disease, dracunculiasis, or guinea worm disease.
Augustine Koli filed that report. And we head now to Liberia, where the Senate has concurred with the passage of the establishment of the National Tourism Authority. This happened in the Senate on Tuesday. Grace Joshua in Monrovia completes the story.
Barely 5 years after the conduct of the national referendum to amend its constitutional provision, the Senate on Tuesday received a communication from pro tempore Senator Albert Chie for review. On December 8, 2020, a communication was received by the legislators calling for amendment received to its proposed constitutional provision to a national referendum but were not approved by the electorate. Although all the proposed amendment received majority votes of Liberians who participated in the national referendum, they however fall short of the required two-thirds of the total vote as mandated in Article 91 of the 1986 Constitution of Liberia, Senator Chie recalled. Also submitted for review and possible amendment are Article 49 of the Constitution to provide for elections of the Speaker, Deputy Speaker, and other officers of the House of Representatives for a term of 5 years, and a proposed amendment to Article 83 of the Constitution to change the date for general elections from 2nd Tuesday of October to 2nd Tuesday of November in each election year.
The first way is either by 10,000 citizens, instead of 10,000 citizens that will come to the legislature and they will have to tell vote of the legislature. Or the second way is that the legislature itself can bring proposals, and with concurrence of two-thirds of both houses, those proposals can go through the national referendum.
In another serious action on Tuesday, the Liberian Senate concurred with the House of Representatives to pass the bill establishing the National Tourism Authority, which now paved the way for the creation of an independent body, removing the Tourism Department from the Ministry of Information, Cultural Affairs, and Tourism. For West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Grace Joshua in Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
In our guest interview, we take you back to Ghana, where the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Dr. Dominic Ayine, has dropped a series of high-profile cases involving members of the ruling National Democratic Congress, NDC, who were being prosecuted under the previous administration. This follows the recent change in government. Among the cases withdrawn is the controversial ambulance case against Finance Minister Dr. Cassiel Atto-Forson and businessman Richard Jakpa. The decision contained in a notice from the Attorney General's chamber on January 23, 2025 marks a significant shift in the government's legal approach. Our guest, Justice Abdullahi, senior lawyer and the head of Chambers of Crown Legal Bureau, believes the move by the Attorney General is that it reposes confidence in the judiciary system.
First of all, our constitution gives the Attorney General the discretionary powers, discretionary prosecutorial powers. So the Attorney General determines who he wants to go against and who he doesn't. And so, indeed, a larger part of our corruption-related incidents in Ghana stems from this particular discretionary powers. Over the years, it has been used either for good reasons or for bad reasons, and it's part of the contribution to the incidence of political corruption in particular. Having said that, because of these discretionary powers, the Attorney General is also not required by law to disclose his reasons for discontinuing or going after a particular suspect in any case. Now, in relation to the instant cases that we are dealing with, I think we have had the last administration preaching and winning elections purely on the basis of the alleged corruption of the then Mahama administration. And so what we saw in the last 8 years was an attempt by the government to pin down this narrative on the throats of all of us. We believe that indeed the Mahama administration was corrupt, which every Ghanaian actually believed at the time. But assuming office, we discovered that most of the allegations were either political talks or just suspicion without any substance.
Were they probed first?
It's indeed the reason why, regardless of the numbers of the incidents of the brouhaha on corruption, the entire 8 years, we never saw even 1/10 of the numbers that we screamed corruption being prosecuted. So naturally, when some of these prosecutions were going on, it became obvious that they were just much ado about nothing. That is on the basis of this that I believe the new Attorney General didn't find it too difficult to enter a nullity on these issues.
But we talk about confidence. Does this act produce some confidence to the ordinary Ghanaian to have trust in the judiciary system?
Indeed, the last administration weaponized the judiciary and used this as a tool to hunt political opponents. And in fact, it got to a point even the ordinary citizen who spoke his mind became a victim of the last administration's attempt to gag literally everyone. All of us have been victims one way or the other. And almost every Ghanaian would admit that the last administration was the most intolerant administration in the history of our democracy, literally going after everyone that disagrees with the position of the government at the time. And so, to that extent, I would take it from the other angle that this decision by the Attorney General rather reinforces confidence in this new government and an attempt to also push forward this level of trust that no one will come after you if you have done nothing wrong.
Justice Abdullah is a senior lawyer and head of Chambers of Crown Legal Bureau. Well, let's join Sanklu Janko for Sport News.
Hello out there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Algeciras have added to their roster 26-year-old Senegalese power forward Isaac Cham, according to media reports. Cham, who returned to the Spanish Segunda Division Basketball League, joined from fellow second-tier side Zonodzas. Meanwhile, Serie A basketball side Kevin Napoli Basket has signed 30-year-old Nigerian ex-international John Egbonu. Egbonu recently played for Rio Bregan in Spanish Liga. Endesa before joining the Italian side. The 30-year-old Egbono played for the Nigerian senior national team back in 2020. And in football, Senegal head coach Pape Thiaw has set high ambitions for the team ahead of the CAF Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2025, according to CAF official website. Speaking to CAF Communication after the tournament draw in Rabat, Thiaw acknowledged the challenges ahead but exuded confidence in the Lions of Teranga's ability to compete for the second continental title. Senegal, seated in Group D, will face the Democratic Republic of Congo, Benin and Botswana. And Nigeria's quest for a fourth CAF Africa Cup of Nations AFCON title will be fueled by hunger for redemption, according to Super Eagles head coach Eric Schell, as reported by CAF official website. The Malian tactician acknowledged the formidable challenge ahead but insisted that Nigeria's squad is motivated to go all the way. Nigeria, drawn in Group C, will face 2004 champions Tunisia, Uganda and Tanzania in the group stage. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And that's it on this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. And many thanks to Maudo Juf and Umu Danugo for the technical assistance. Do connect with us on all of our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, at WDR News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship environment program, Enviroscope. I am Imo Edet. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3